Hello and welcome to a new short mini-series on Unreal Engine survival interaction mechanics. So the idea of this is going to be a short short shots on interaction mechanics, door mechanics, locks, that sort of thing, maybe towards a survival game. It's not exactly going to be a full-on survival game creation, but we're going to show you how to create certain mechanics of that sort of genre. So to get started, open up Unreal Engine. This is 5.7.1 I believe, and hit yourself new project, and it's going to be in first person, so click on that. Don't worry about any of these, give it a name. I've already got a project loaded, and hit create, and I will see you inside the engine. Okay, here we are in the engine. I've already been working in this. I did actually start this series last week, but unfortunately I realised afterwards, after recording about 12 episodes, that OBS decided to not record properly. So your screen won't look like this. It'll have a lot of yellow blocks in, some, look like a level kind of thing. What you want to do is minimize the lighting down, leave the floor there, and the player starts, and obviously all these are part of the lighting up there. Ignore the PCG wall. Actually, that was I was testing with something, to leave that there, but you probably won't have that. But apart from world data layers, the mini map, and the player start, delete everything. Oh, and the floor, don't delete the floor. So you end up with this, just an empty base world with nothing in it except the player start and the floor, pretty much leaving the lighting in place so you can see, because after all you need to see. So I'm going to take for granted that you've got a bit of an idea of how the editor works. This isn't the place for an editor tutorial because it will go into too much detail and it would take too long. So I guess if you don't know the engine, you're best to go and do some tutorials based on the editor, get yourself familiar with it, and then come back and start this. Just the basics will do. Some of it I will explain as I go along, but obviously the moving around the editor and so forth, and placing actors, that sort of thing. Okay, let's get started. Now I'm going to open up my content drawer. Now I'm going to minimize these down, ignore everything I've got in here. There's a lot of things in here that you won't have. Like I said, I already started this tutorial and it went to pot, so I'm going to do this from scratch, as it were, or walk you through what things I have done from the previous one. So what do we want to achieve? End goal, we want to create a character that can walk around and interact with things. That's the initial goal anyway, and then from there we want to expand on that and make things work, i.e. animate things like doors, windows, locks, much more. But we'll start with some basics first. That's what we've got planned. So it all starts with the character, and this character that's already assigned, if you come up here and click this icon in between the plus and the cinematic, it gives you a list of all the world blueprints. If you come down, and you'll see all the game mode and the characters, and the pawn here is the character, and that's the default one that will go. If I hit play, that's the default one. Ignore that little dot, we've put that in, and I'll show you that later on. Press escape. So yeah, that's the player we're going to be editing. Two ways to get to it is content drawer, click on your content, first person, blueprints, first person character, and this is the screen you will get. For now we're not going to mess with any of this. This is the control schemes for the camera input, which controls the view and the movement input and the jumping. We're not going to mess with any of that. We may do later on, but for now we're not going to touch any of that. Ignore this, the black light, that's something I've been messing with. I'll show you that a bit later. But everything else you should be the same in there. You should have the capsule, the arrow, the mesh, first person camera, and the character movement. And you probably load it up like this first. Again, ignore that light there, just click off it. This is what you should have. So as you can see, I've got an extra thing here, and this is what I use for my interactions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to interact with objects in the world. In the probably the easiest way, which is what's called a trace, which draws a line from your camera to the center of your screen and through for a distance and bounces back when it gets a hit. Okay, that's basically what we're going to do. And we could put this in our event graph here, but what I like to do is keep it tidier and put it here in a component. So to create this component, you come to your content drawer. I'm going to put it in this folder. As you can see, I've got it here. But if you either click add or right click on empty space, blueprint class, and actor component, give it a name. I called mine BPC _ interact trace. I'm going to delete this one because I don't need it because I've already got one. Right, and that's it. Once you've done that, BPC _ interact trace. Once you've got that, double click it to open it. As you can see, mine's got a load of stuff in already, and we're not going to touch that. I'm going to rebuild all this from scratch so you can see what we're doing. So you should have an event graph with nothing in it, so it should be like blank except for the begin, play, event tick, so forth, and maybe an overlap, I don't know. If you've not got any of them, don't worry, we'll show you how they're done. So what are we doing for a trace? So I like to make a trace inside a function. I will show you how to make that function later on, but let's make the trace. So if I just show you my function, here it is. It looks quite complicated, but it really is not. It really isn't. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to build this bit by bit and show you how it's done. Right, okay. So let me just switch on the debugging for duration, compile, run, and we'll show you what a trace does. You see that red line there? That line is drawing in front of me until it hits somewhere, and at the moment it's not hit anything. But there, if I look down at the floor, see how this square's come up? That's a hit. So all we're doing is drawing a line from the camera in the direction the player's looking and sees if it hits anything. The reason I'm not hitting anything there is because I've set a length on it, so there won't be just firing off into the ever never, that's nothing's there. Obviously with an interact, you can't interact with the door that's on the other side over there, but you could probably interact with something about here. So that's why it's not drawing very far, but basically that's what it does. It draws a line from the camera to the through the center of the screen. Well, that's where we chose to. You can draw it to anywhere, but that's where we're choosing to. So let's turn the debug off. Okay, I'm going to do this in I'm going to do this in the event graph to start with. So if we come back to the event graph, ignore what's here, and we're going to use the event tick. So if I disconnect it, I bring the event tick up here, so we've got a blank to start with. So you've probably heard event tick is a naughty place and you shouldn't be putting your code in there. That's extreme and utter B. There are reasons not to put stuff in the event tick, but there are also reasons to put into its code into the event tick. Knowing when and when not to is the important thing. Now, event tick, you should keep the load to minimum, but it's for important stuff that needs to run every frame. If it doesn't need to run every frame, you can use things like timers, but I won't go too into depth of that. It'll probably crop up while we're doing this anyway. So okay, so where do we start? Well, we need to draw a trace. So if I bring up my function, get trace, this is what's called a trace node. It has a start, an end, and some other information. So we'll start with that in our grain graph. So we'll drag off the event tick. So click and hold, drag off and let go, and type in line trace. We'll just do by channel. We can do it for objects, but we'll do by channel for now. So line trace by channel, not the multi. We don't need the multi. So like I said, we've got a start in world coordinates XYZ and an end XYZ. We've got a trace channel, which we're going to be using visibility, which is the best one to use for the time being. You can change that, but trace complex is whether to use complex collisions on objects that you're hitting. It will ignore that for now. Same with the actors to ignore. We're not going to put actors in there to ignore. We're not going to bother with the list. We can debug that a little quicker by, not debug it, sorry. We can filter that on the other side later on, how we need to. Draw debug type. It will show the line for never, show the line for one frame, for the duration, which is if you click here, there we go, or forever. I don't suggest using forever. If you are debugging, it's probably best for duration, and set that to something like 2 seconds. Ignore self, make sure that's ticked, and that's important because you don't want to be tracing a line, and if it hits, say, your head, which is just in front of the camera, then it's just a waste of time. The color of the line and the color when it hits something. Okay, and we've just explained how long. That's the duration it draws for. Now we'll leave the duration on there for on duration, so rather than none, because we want to be able to see what it's doing. It's for debugging purposes. So where are we drawing from? So we want to draw from the middle of the screen, and there's different ways we can do this. We can draw from the camera's position. That's one way of doing it, or we can draw from the screen coordinates of the center of the screen, which is what I like to do. You can use the center of the camera's position, but this is the way I like to do it. So I get the viewport size. So if you right click on empty space, get viewport, and you want get viewport size, this comes out as a vector 2D, so an X and a Y coordinate, because screen is 2D, left width and height. There's no depth in there. That's what we deal with next. So to find the center of the screen, it's relatively easy. What we do is we drag off this little node here and we type divide, and we want to divide it by 2. That gives us exactly half the width. This is asking for 2 values, the X and the Y. Well, rather than put 2 and 2 in there, we can right click on this blue node and we can change that to float double precision. Double click on the box or delete the contents, whichever suits you best, and just type in 2, press enter. We now have the viewport size. So now what we want to do is find out where that is in world space, because this is just our screen we're looking at. We need to know where we are in the world. So if we drag off there and we type in D project screen to world, okay, so this will take the screen position we've just entered, which is bang in the middle, and it will take the position of the player to deduct whereabouts that point is in space, yeah, in world space, which here it puts the position and the direction. I believe this is whether it gets a proper value, if it's able to. I think if it's false it doesn't work, so which I can't see that not happening. So what do we need for this? Well, we're going to need an input of the player's controller. Now, to get the player's controller, I don't know if you've ever done this before, but you need to get the player controller and you need to cast it to this, cast it to that, which can get messy and dirty. If I just put in there and get player controller, will work, but for other things we'll need more information off as player controller, so I'm not going to do that. What I've done, I've created a variable called owner controller. Okay, so you click this plus, type in owner. I'm just going to put it control for now, just to show you what I did, because I've got controller, owner controller. Click on this arrow here and type in there player controller, and you want player controller object reference. Also, for debugging purposes, click the closed eye to make it open. That means it's viewable inside the editor. Really useful, that is. I'm going to delete that one because I already have mine. Oh, not just delete the words, delete the whole thing. Okay, so I now have an owner controller that I can plug into there. Right, that's just the way I tidy things up. You can place your nodes anywhere, just try and keep them looking tidy. We also need another variable, so if you click the plus again, and this time type owner character. Okay, and in your drop down box you want to type in character, and if you come up to here, the one that just says character on its own, and click object reference. Okay, which will give you this. Right, why do we need that? That's what you're asking. Why do we need that? Okay, so do I have a begin play? Yes, I do. I'm going to disconnect it from here for a second, and we'll drag it up to here. So we need to set the values of these, because if I try and run this now, it's just not going to know. There's nothing in there. It's just a variable. It holds some information and it will say, oh, this isn't valid, so it won't work. So we need to set these. So to do so, we do a cast and a get to store this information. So let's start with the owner character. If you drag it off and put it on this pin here on event begin play, it will make it a set node automatically. If you drag it off to empty space, you can choose whether you want to get, which means read, or set, which means write. Yep, we need to set the owner character, and that's quite easy enough. As you can look, I already have a node here. Okay, and to do this, I will show you in the event graph. You need to right click on the empty space and type get owner. So because we're in a component, we're not inside the actual character. You need to get the component owner. Okay, and that just returns an actor object. It doesn't return the type we want, which is a character. We're storing it as a character because we need to interact with things that a character can do, which is different to an actor. It's an extension of actor. So from here, you want to pull out and type cast to character. Now, if you want to be specific, you can cast it to the BP first person character, but what that will do is limit you later on, because if you change to a different blueprint and make your own, it will no longer work. It will break it. So you can just click cast to character. Okay, put that in between there and there, and then drag the character off to owner character. If it fails, it's not going to do anything, and obviously this isn't a user end user problem, it's a dev problem. So if it fails, you're going to get errors, and that's for you to debug. You could put a load of debug stuff in there, really not worth it. Right, we now have the owner character. We now need to set the owner controller. So if you drag that one out, the player controller, owner controller, drag that onto the set there, it will automatically link us up. I like to save it and compile it quite often. If you select all the nodes like so, press C, and you could just say get player controller and character, call it whatever you like, makes no difference. Then what you could do again is select the whole lot again, make sure you're over one of these nodes, not this piece, as it's one of these nodes, right click and click collapse to function, and it will say a function name. I call mine fn underscore for function get player character. Now it's giving me an error because I've already got it, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, and what it does is it will give you, once you've typed that in, that, yep, fn get player character. If you double click it, or you double click the function here, there's all your nice hard work in a function. You may have to tidy up the nodes, sometimes they start flying off everywhere and stuff, and that's basically it. So on begin play, you're getting the player character's information, and the controller, it's in there as well. So back to your event graph. To get there, you can either click event graph, or you can click up here, but it starts opening loads if you're not careful. Right, so at begin play, it populates this. So I'm going to just break this link here a second, then I'm going to show you what that does. So if okay, I was about to jump in and do a test on our trace, and my editing header just realized it wouldn't work for you guys. Some of you may have noticed it if they know anything about active components, but those of you that don't will fell flat on your face and thought, oh my god, what's he on about? I forgot to tell you to add the components into your character. So load up your first person character, BP first person character. In the top left at components, click add and type in there bpc underscore, and you should see trace, interact trace. Click on that and it will add it in here. So now you have that connected, and we can get back to the video. I apologize. Play. Okay, and if I hold shift and 1, click on our first person character here on the right, and if we come down to our, in this little box here, to our interact trace, and as you can see, you've got an owner character, and it should say BP first person character 0, which is that, and owner controller BP first person player controller 0, which is the current controller that's running at the moment. That's what these yellow ones are. They're the spawned in ones that we're using. We now have something to keep track on. Okay, back to your BPC interact. You can either do that, or you can come down here and click on the window. We're done with the begin play piece. Let's go back to our event tick, and we'll rehook that back up, because it would have errored out if we left it like that. So we've now got our owner controller, so that won't error out anymore. Yeah, so we've deprojected to the world where we are, and that's the position we're going to start our trace from. So this start position is our world position here into there. So we've got a start on a trace. We now need to work out the end. And as you can see, I've got another variable here. So if you click plus, call it trace length, and make it of type float. So this will hold a number for us. You must hit compile and save first before you can edit it. So now you've got that. As the trace length, I've put in 250. over here. Yep, you can't change that unless you've hit compile and save first, enter a value in there, and then compile save again to store it to make sure it doesn't get lost. That's how far ahead of the character I want to draw a line. So with that in mind, we now have a distance, but now we need to work out our distance on top of our position. So what we need to do is get the direction, multiply it by the distance, and add it to the start will give us somewhere for an end. So we will do that by dragging off here, multiply this, and drag our trace length out and drop it there, and it will automatically change it to float for us. But like I said, that's not good enough. All that's done is give us a direction, and how far ahead that direction is, we now need to add that to our current wheel position. So if we drag off there as well, click, type add, press enter, drag that pin into the bottom, and drag that one into the end, and that's it. There we go, folks. Hold up now. I'm just going to use this, click one and then click the second, and then shift click the next one and press Q, and it just lines up the arrows. That's give us a start and end point. Yep. I'm now going to save and compile. I'll leave that on the screen for there for a sec so you can see what's going on. I'm going to minimize, and as you can see, we're drawing our trace. Yeah, I've got it on for 5 seconds because, oh no, 2 seconds, sorry. But as you can see, we're drawing a line to the center of the screen, and it's, again, it was the same as before. It's only hitting 250 away. That's what those red blocks are. And then as you lift up, see how it's no longer making those red blocks, is because that's too far away. And there we go, we have a trace, and that is part one. Part two will be understanding what we're hitting and things like that, so that we can interact with things. So yeah, I hope that was useful to some people. If it's not, I do apologize. If there's anything not clear, and just pop a comment, and I'll try and get back to you. If it's complex, I'll see if I can make a video about it. If not, I'll just answer it actually in the comment section. But yeah, I hope that's helpful to you, and next stage we will move on, and I'll just show you what's in my real trace. We'll move on to this side, which it isn't actually that difficult. It's not actually too bad. So yeah, we'll move on to that. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.